Okay.
All right. So according to the studio, we are live. And now I see it over here on my phone. And it is true. It is absolutely true. All right. So welcome to Carnivore Talk. We're starting the night off with, make sure you turn down that volume.
I did.
Mute your devices there. Yeah, that echo, that 10-second delay will drive you nuts. So, welcome to Carnivore Talk. We're starting the night off with Meathead and Jeff. Are we allowed to use your real name, Meathead?
It's your channel.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And
just use Meathead. He ain't comfortable with it.
Okay. No, that's fine. All right. Very good. So, obviously, we're going to talk about what a meat-only carnivore diet does to your body, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So, to start off with, if you are interested in participating, obviously, we have the chat opened up, and we love to read the comments, and we love to interact with you. So feel free to speak freely there. We'll get to them as soon as we can. And if you would like to participate on screen with the three of us, we can have up to 10 people in here. And you can either get the link from the post section on the YouTube channel if you are a member. If you're not a channel member, you can also go to carnivoretalk.com and register there for free, and you will find the link there as well. So we don't just publish it out in the open, because we want to avoid, disruptive militant vegans coming in and trying to crash our little party here. So, how are you two doing today? What's been going on?
Great.
I'm doing fantastic.
All right.
The weather's warmed up down here in Texas, and I'm just tickled pink with it.
Well, you're getting tornadoes down there.
Well, yeah, we had 3 tornadoes a couple of weeks ago, and then we had another one last night. But so far, they're missing me.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's good. It's actually cooled off up here in Ohio. We were having some nice warm weather, but we had a cold front come in, and the last couple days have been just like mid-50s, unseasonably cool for this time of year. And but that'll change soon. But I was hoping to open my pool this last weekend, but it ended up being too cold to do that. So it is what it is. But Ohio weather is kind of like that, unpredictable. I tore out a shower today. A huge shower in like a mansion. I'm a tile setter by trade, so I am absolutely beat right now, sore all over and pretty tired. So that's how my day's been going. We have in the chat here, hello Terry. It's 48 over in Wisconsin, so glad you could join us.
Burr.
Burr. All right. Very good. All right, so the topic here that we're talking about today, what a meat-only carnivore diet does to your body, is inspired by this article that came up on my news feed right here on msn.com, and it's copied from some website. In fact, I think it tells me up here. Chef Standards. And this article is, it's kind of okay in some areas, a little silly in some others. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Our first slide here mentions, oh, wait, where's our introduction? Here's our first slide. What a meat-only carnivore diet does to your body. And it reads, the carnivore diet, eating only meat and animal products, has sparked fierce debates in nutrition circles. Some swear by its transformative powers for weight loss and mental clarity, while doctors raise red flags about missing nutrients. Let's cut through the noise and examine what really happens when you ditch plants and go full-on carnivore. So this will be an interesting article for sure, which I think the three of us are well qualified to comment on, because how long have you been doing a carnivore diet?
Myself, almost a year.
Almost 1 year, yes. And
2 years here.
2 years, yep. And it's 2 years here also. So we got 5 years combined experience, and with eating only meat, or at least eating only meat most of the time. And we're still here, and we're all looking good. We're all healthy, so it mustn't be too detrimental. I see we got Rick just joined the chat, and welcome. Hope you had a good day at work. Hopefully it was better than mine. And then we have someone wants to join in here on the stage, so we're going to go ahead and bring him in. Hello, Scott. How are you?
I'm all right. How about you guys? Can you hear me?
Pretty good. My name is Bob. We got Geoff and Meathead here. And how about you tell us about yourself and where you're from?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. All right. 10-4. I'm from North Carolina, right above Carr Lake. Live not too far from the lake. 55, soon to turn 56. Been on a carnivore. Just went over a year this past week, May the 8th. Today was a pretty good day. I went back for my, I have an autoimmune disease called neuromyelitis optica spectrum disorder. It's really close to multiple sclerosis with the symptoms and the relapses and the reoccurring, the lesions and whatnot. Been diagnosed with that since 2018. But today I went back and my immunoglobulin numbers have inched back since I've been on carnivore to today may have been my last infusion. So I go have an infusion every 6 months, 4 or 5 hours each time. And my numbers are just on the cusp of being where they need to be. So that's quite a bit of change in the last 6 years with just being, eating carnivore for a year. So really happy with that. It was a good
That's
day.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's great.
those are great results. I love hearing it.
Oh yeah. And as far as the first thing people talk about, I've posted it before, is, the first thing we say is the weight loss. That always comes out first. And then, but it's so much more deep than, the metabolic part is just huge. And, but when I lead off, the other day I lost 95 pounds in basically a year and a week. So the weight loss was huge, but I'm really more excited about, I haven't taken any prednisone or Neurontin since maybe 4 to 6 weeks on the carnivore diet last year. So I've been medicine free for just about a year now. And then hopefully next couple of months, another couple of blood tests, and I'll be done with the infusions, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. So yeah, no, that's good to hear. I love it. I love hearing good stories of people healing and having success, losing weight and feeling great. I have a friend who has MS, and I want to accumulate these kind of experiences and get him to listen to them, because I really think he would benefit from a carnivore diet. And he's really like, he's on disability now because it really affects him. He's really impaired. And it's sad to see, and I think this would help him out a lot, but
I agree.
I have a hard time convincing people about the benefits of the carnivore diet.
It is. So today, so I had two neurologists I normally see, Dr. Lingal, Dr. Eckstein, but Dr. Lingal I've been keeping up with her when I went on the, she's been keeping up with me for the past 8 or 10 months. And I give her weekly, monthly, whatever updates. And she's really interested in the effects of the carnivore diet on MS. And she says she's a big fan of it, but in her community, it's still, we're in the minority with the neurology and the Mayo Clinic, which is like the premier MS neuroscience center in the country in Minneapolis. And they're not on board. They're, still, eat your vegetables, eat a balanced diet, blah, blah, blah. And then, so with my progress I've made over the past 8 or 10 months, we had a fellow master's degree person that was here at Duke in North Carolina. And she did my first appointment, lasted about 40 minutes. you know, it was kind of even keeled. I couldn't tell if she was on board. I couldn't tell if she wasn't. She was just taking all these notes in. So then when my normal neurologist came in, we had a second appointment, and he is now becoming a huge fan. I mean, to hear him say, I need to start getting my other patients on this same plan. You know, your results are incredible. You know, I don't understand why our community is so much slow. We're so far behind. He said, it's not like this is cutting edge technology for the MS community, because you can do some research. And in the 50s, they called it the red meat diet for MS. And you can actually look up some videos and some information on that. And so they already got there one time in the 50s, but then when mass media and pharma and big food started pushing their agenda in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, then, hey, don't eat the red meat, it's going to kill you. And, you know, they were already in the 40s and the 50s using red meat and water to, you know, keep MS in check. So it's actually, he says we're starting to come full circle. So it was a really, really good interview. Appointment. I like him a lot. He's really open-minded, you know, and he said, you know, if you can get off the medicine, get off the medicine. So that's our plan.
There's been more and more mounting evidence of carnivore helping with MS.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting, because I've heard that not just as far as a treatment for MS, but going back, you know, for all kinds of maladies, whether it was diabetes or whether it was epilepsy and a couple other ones. You go back into the early 1900s, you go back into the late 1800s, and you can actually find, you know, books and studies that showed the benefits of going on an all meat diet or mostly meat diet that was actually improving these kind of conditions. And it is interesting that right around the middle of the 20th century, that all of a sudden, you know, red meat became bad, evil. And there was this big push to get everybody off of it, which still lingers to this day. Actually, you know, red meat continues to be demonized at this day. All right. So we're considering this article here, what a meat-only carnivore diet does to your body. And we're just going to take these one point at a time. We're going to consider our first point, and then we'll come to the chat, Solar, and we'll talk about your question there. But if we go back to here, we read our introduction, and there's about 17 points in this article. And, you know, some of them are interesting. Some of them are just nothing to worry about. And some of them are kind of humorous. So number one on this list that I'd like to get your opinions on is blood cholesterol goes on a wild ride. Prepare for a cholesterol roller coaster. Your LDL, the bad cholesterol, often skyrockets on an all-meat diet. Without fiber from plants to help flush it out, cholesterol can build up in your bloodstream. For some people, this means increased risk of heart disease. Your arteries won't thank you for the fatty traffic jam. All right. Who wants to go first?
Well, my first in this article period, especially in the beginning, all these articles that want to tout, they think they're being balanced when they say, well, you know, carnivore does some benefits, but it's got these other things that could be dangerous. I really can't stand them when they do that, because the people that are putting down carnivore are the people that have never tried it. You know, they haven't really studied it. They're going by what the standard medical and nutrition says about, you know, what they've been brainwashed to say, I should say. And so these articles just drive me nuts when they do this stuff. And this bit of saying the bad cholesterol, you know, well, they don't even list the bad cholesterol. The LDL is the good cholesterol. There ain't nothing wrong with LDL, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Does it go on a wild ride? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it goes on a wild ride. So my my total cholesterol is I forget now. It's 300 and something. My LDL is like 230 something, but my HDL and my triglycerides are down. My HDL is up. My triglycerides, the bad cholesterol is down. And in fact, my ratio between the two is under 1 now.
Nice.
Beautiful.
I'm at like 0.97 or something like that on my HDL to triglyceride ratio. I'm going to say that, to just blanket statement saying that the LDL skyrockets and that it could build up your bloodstream, that's pure ignorance. There's no science on it. There's absolutely no proof that it does anything of the sort. So that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, I think they lay out that blanket statement that you mentioned, and then the fear factor. And then, for mine, I just speak for me personally. I have seen some roller coaster stuff with my cholesterol. I started off in the 180s on my LDL. I dropped 35 points after 3 or 4 months. It just went back up a little bit with today's, but the numbers are still, my total cholesterol is 212. I feel great. I feel good. I don't have any issues with that. But as soon as they see that number, it's just, it's the end of the world. You're going to die tomorrow.
And yet they can't see all the other markers.
Right.
Every single marker improves to exactly what they want to see, except for that one. And that's all they want to focus on is that LDL and nothing else. And that's ridiculous. How can that be so detrimental to me when everything else has healed? Okay, my story's out there that my Crohn's disease was cured, my IBS was cured, and not to go into all the other healings, but the most important one and the reason that got me on this journey to begin with was my atrial fibrillation is reversed. I'm 2 years now without an attack. I don't even have heart palpitations anymore. It's totally reversed. I have had extensive heart tests done, and there's no blockage. There's no buildup. There's absolutely nothing wrong with my heart. And, I've been carnivore for 2 years now. My cardiologists love what I'm doing. They're actually the only ones that have looked at all my other markers and said, wow, you're doing great. They got me off all my medications. I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with my heart. Carnivore ain't hurting it one little bit.
Yeah.
I know my comment on this was, so why does LDL maybe go on a roller coaster? And so for me, when I went on my carnivore diet, I took off, 60-ish pounds, and I took it off pretty fast too. And so as I rapidly lost weight, my LDL did go up. And then as I stabilized, because I've been weight stable now for over a year, my LDL came back down. So I didn't go back down to where it was before. It was pretty low, but I was also on a mostly vegetarian-based diet prior to carnivore. Not a complete vegetarian, but it was very plant-heavy. And then when I rapidly lost weight, mine, so it was probably started around 109. As I rapidly lost weight, it actually peaked up in the upper 300s to lower 400s, and it got to the point because of my triglyceride issue, which is related to my kidney disease, and that's another story altogether. They actually couldn't detect it for a while, and then but now that I've been weight stable, it's come down to literally about 201, 205. And that's where it stays, and I'm not worried about that one bit. So I do expect it to be a little bit higher because I'm on a, meat-based diet, and the cholesterol, the lipoproteins, the LDLs and stuff, that's what transports that energy from the liver to the cells that need it. And when you're fat adapted, that's your energy source. So it would make sense that those go up. What doesn't make sense is this second paragraph here that says, without fiber from plants to help flush it out.
Yeah, how in the world does that
build
work?
up in your bloodstream? So how does fiber doesn't even enter your bloodstream? Fiber is
Right.
not even digestible. So how is fiber binding to cholesterol in your bloodstream and helping you flush it out? I don't even know if that's true, or if it is true, it needs a better explanation, because I think we're missing some of the details there.
My comment on the cholesterol issue is, and this goes hand in hand with the fiber, balanced diet, everything. You go out and look at sharks, you go out and look at any animal that is a carnivore, and do they need a balanced diet? Do you see a fat, obese animal eating the proper diet? No, you don't.
Very true.
And most generally, unless they've been fed and raised with human food, humans feeding them what they feel they need, out in the wild, you probably don't see too many animals dying from cancer. And again, these animals that eat primarily carnivore, they're still defecating without any fiber.
That's
That's
true.
an excellent point.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
And like those animals, I have no problems in that department, and I hardly eat any fiber also. So I've gone a year without fiber, so I'm fine.
You bring up an excellent point there, Meathead, on that. When you talk about the animals not having cancer, they're not getting the diseases we get. They're eating their species-specific diet. And when you eat your species-specific diet, your metabolism is strong. It fights off anything that comes along. And we see that in our own pets. Because what do most of our pets eat? They eat the junk food that the pet food companies tell us is best for them, which is usually a grain diet.
Yep.
Eating that kibble. Now, all my animals are on carnivore now, but we have a history of our dogs only living 10 to 12 years when dogs used to live 15, 17, 20 years back when they ate a meat diet. But now they're eating grains. My last hunting dog, my Catahoula, I had to put her down because she had cancer. Well, what was I feeding her? She ate strictly a grain diet, a kibble diet. That was my fault. I didn't know no better. That was before I ever started carnivore. And so when and who is it? Somebody was talking to Chafee, I think it was. There's a reason why when you go to the zoo, it says don't feed the animals, because the animals are on a species-specific diet. They don't want them getting human food because it'll make them sick. So yeah, Meathead, that was an excellent point you brought up. And Bob, the deal with the cholesterol going up, it only stands to reason that you're going to have higher LDL cholesterol, because that is the transport. The LDL is the transport for the fats. And if you're only getting your energy from fats, it only stands to reason you're going to have more fats circulating in your system,
in your blood,
in the LDL. Your LDL has to go up in order to supply you with the energy that you need to function.
This is correct. Yeah, everything right.
I did want to mention, concerning the LDL, my take on that is the argument that when Geoff brought up, well, my doctor or cardiologist, they were only worried, they weren't concerned about the improvements on everything else. They were worried about my cholesterol. And that was the fight I had with my cardiologist until I set him in his place and explained to him, your liver makes up 80% of the cholesterol in your body. Your brain is made up of 10, maybe 20% of it. So you're telling me my liver is trying to kill me?
That's a great analogy. I like
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
on that second paragraph you were talking about too, when it's talking about flushing out the cholesterol, the only thing I can think of they're talking about there is they got to be talking about the fats that you ingest are being flushed out by the fiber, because you can't be flushing it out from your bloodstream. It's already there. And like Meathead said, your liver is the one making that cholesterol. It's not what you're eating. It's
Yeah.
your liver making it.
And that's what I think
So
too.
fiber
Is,
can't be flushing squat out of your liver.
yeah, and that's what I think they probably mean too. Is the fiber and other things that you eat will bind to maybe some of the cholesterols or saturated fats, and we know that there's things that will bind to minerals and vitamins too, and not allow you to absorb those and pass them right through you as well. So that's probably where that comes from. All right, well, we're going to move over to the chat for a bit. Solar Dare says, I want to get your opinion on this. About 5.5 months on carnivore and was using it to try to help severe OCD symptoms, and they've only gotten worse. Feeling really fatigued, and daily functioning is being severely hindered as well. Developed a histamine intolerance due to only having ground beef for the first 95 days because I'm on a fixed income due to health reasons. And stress has gotten a lot worse, as well as having the health condition interfere with daily things, including meals, and feeling really frustrated that haven't seen improvement by the 5-month mark. And then finally, was really hoping this would work, as it's literally the last option I have. Meds didn't work. Psychiatrists didn't help. Psychologists didn't help. Group therapy didn't work. All right. So there's a lot there to talk about. And none of us here are doctors. None of us here are psychiatrists, psychologists. We are just individuals who learned about the carnivore diet, applied it, and found success with it, and then became obsessed with it to where we've started researching it and researching it and researching it. And we've become very well educated on the topic. Now, my thinking on that is you should probably definitely still rely on, or at least give a listening ear to the advice of your medical professionals in that regard. So it could be that they can might have medications that you still need, because there could still be some healing to do. Obviously, none of us start carnivore and become instantly healed. There's people that have been on carnivore and, you said you've been on it for 5 months. There's individuals who have taken 1, 2, 3, 5 years to slowly heal from their conditions. Just by way of an example is my chronic kidney disease. I started with stage 4. I still have stage 4. I've shown some small improvements, but nothing drastic yet. Hopefully, as we compound the years, those small improvements will turn into big improvements. But in the meantime, I still have, this condition that I have to be careful with. And that might be the case with you as well. As far as the histamine intolerance, you're not married to ground beef. I know individuals who have done a lion diet with a focus on bison or lamb because they couldn't do the beef, and they found that was more tolerable that way. You're also, obviously, you've got chicken, fish, turkey, seafood, scallops, shrimp. I mean, there's all kinds of other meat-based products, that you could enjoy. And then the last thing I think about the histamine intolerance is usually those who suffer from that. It's because beef tends to be aged. And so if you have a local rancher and you can try and get beef that's been freshly butchered, that's going to have a lot less histamines in it, and then you might be able to tolerate that better than something that, say, came from your grocery store that may have been aged quite a while and has built up a large concentration of histamines.
Your average carcass is going to be hung for 7 to 14 days before it's completely butchered. So you're gonna have that histamine built up in it to some extent. Now, do you think there's a difference between grass finished and grain finished?
Yes, definitely.
Because I hear a lot of people that have histamine intolerance seem to do better with the grass finished.
I wake up with, when I'm eating bacon and eggs, I have sinus issues. And when I was eating grass-fed ribeye, those disappeared for 6 weeks. Not a problem. Then as soon as I started back on bacon and eggs and some regular beef, the stuff came back. I just deal with it. It's not a big issue for me. It's par for the course. As long as I'm not eating the sad diet, I don't get the inflammation. I don't feel yucky. When I wake up, my feet are on the floor. I'm ready to hit the ground running. In fact, in my 50 plus years, I wake up and somebody talks to me, I'm ready to engage. Prior to carnivore, I couldn't. I would let me have 2 or 3 cups of coffee before you talk to me. Now,
yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think the 5 months is really, really early. I think one of the things we talk about on the board is comparing ourselves to other people. You know, we're so individual. You know, I may have had great results at 5 months. Next person may take 10 months. I'm 13 months in now, and I'm still waiting to get to where I consider myself healed with the autoimmune issue. So I think the time, 5 months, is really, really early in the carnivore journey for probably most everybody. But, you know, I think some of my stuff happened a little bit quick in comparison. But then I think I learned early on that we just can't compare ourselves to everybody else, because it's nothing cookie cutter about this at all. So for the poster, I would say, you know, 5 months is really early. Adjust what you're eating, make sure your fat content's right. Some of that could be as much physical as it is mental. If your electrolytes aren't right, your salt's not right, fat's not right, you could wake up and be really tired and go, oh, I'm mentally not prepared to go. Or you may not be physically prepared to go, and it's probably easier to fix the physical part than let the mental part work itself out. So I think my suggestion would be 5 months is really early, and I'm still a baby in it. You know, I'm just at a year. It's not like I know a whole lot, but what I have learned is that we're all different, and you can't just. You know.
Yeah, and
from our experience, though, we're seeing a lot of wisdom coming from this baby, though.
yeah. You know, and realistically, you know, we're part of a community that really speaks highly of carnivore, and as if it's a miracle. And that's because for some of us, it just feels miraculous, but it's not a miracle. You know,
Right.
It's just science. It's just health. It's just nutrition. And when we were told that certain things were, you know, incurable, and then we cure them, you know, that feels like a miracle. But that does not mean that carnivore is necessarily going to completely fix everything, you know, and it kind of depends on what's that cause. So I wouldn't give up on carnivore. I certainly believe that is the most nutrient dense, healthy way a person can eat. The degree of how strict or how not so strict that you want to be with your meat-based diet, you know, that's entirely up to you. You know, you want to try, you might want to try going strict line. You might want to try something else and see how you feel on it, you know, and that's varied per individual. So a proper human diet, though, is completely healthy for a proper human. You're a proper human. We all are proper humans. So So it's not that, the diet won't be to your detriment for sure. And we do definitely think that you'll see some benefits. As to whether or not it will completely rectify every situation you might have, that's one of those time will tell kind of affairs. All right, let's move on. We have Terry. My MS was diagnosed in 2017 and has slowly progressed. I'm carnivore for almost 4 years now. I wasn't very strict at first, but have tightened it up as I went along, and my symptoms have been greatly reduced. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Glad to hear that as you tightened things up, then you started to see better results. So that's very good. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they start off as, keto, on the proper human diet scale, just anywhere from 0 carb carnivore up to 100 grams carbs, depending on your personal physiology. Some people do a keto diet because that's been known to really help people too, but they just don't quite get the benefit of it. And then, they tighten things up. They go strict carnivore for a while, and then they're able to heal because they've eliminated something that was causing them issues. And then as to what that is, that kind of, you don't know. You really don't know until you get to that point where you decide to try adding things back slowly to see how you feel, to see if you can't figure out exactly what it was that was triggering the issue. And that's if you want to, because of course you don't have to. You could be carnivore, strict, enjoy the benefits of that, and you could eat that way for the rest of your life and be perfectly healthy. So you don't have to add anything back if you don't want. But if you want to, that's entirely up to you. All right.
Yeah, I've got a good friend of mine. His son has MS, and I had a talk with him about it, and sent him a bunch of videos and a bunch of articles on how carnivore can help MS, and his son just isn't interested in it.
Even though we have facts
nothing
like
you can do about it.
Facts like Terry's next comment here. Humans rarely got cancer in the old days gone by. They didn't get MS either. That is true. And again, that whole it's kind of like that saying, you can't lead a horse. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. I got horses.
Myelin is made from cholesterol.
Yeah, that is huge. We had a long conversation on that today. And reason that I think the carnivore diet helps so much is because it corrects your cholesterol, becomes your fat adaptive. It's more cholesterol or, in your blood system. I actually think that those numbers that inch up is a good thing in the case of MS. I don't speak from heart-related issues. I don't have any, knock on wood. But the myelin is made of cholesterol, and basically what happens is your immune system becomes overactive, and it eats a hole in the myelin, and then it's called a lesion, and then that lesion allows the nerve to basically be exposed. So MS is really, and neuromyelitis is really difficult to diagnose because your symptoms are just crazy. You could have crazy bowel movements. You could have lack of mobility in your arm, burning sensations. Me, I woke up on Labor Day 2018 and was blind as a bat. I couldn't see anything. I lost complete vision from one day to the next. And it all linked to the myelin being cholesterol. So I think when we're becoming fat adaptive and we're the ketones are running crazy and you're doing all these things, I think that's why the MS seems to respond. Neuromyelitis responds really well to the carnivore diet, maybe at a faster rate than a lot of other things. Because I beat myself up for 55 years, and now I've got 1 year on carnivore, and I've turned the corner, incredibly. Not a miracle, but heading in that direction.
Hey, every little bit helps.
Oh yeah, yes sir.
We'll head back towards the article, but we'll look at Rick commented here. If the carnivore diet was so bad, I should be dead already.
Should we all?
Yeah. When we started this broadcast off, we were talking about when you add up all the years that we've been doing it together. I've been doing it 2, Jeff's 2, 1 for Meathead, and 1 for you, Scott, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, that's a total of 6. We have 6 human years here of experience, but none of that
It's
holds a
almost
candle
a
to
dog
Rick.
year.
I believe, if I'm correct, Rick, and you can correct me in the comments, you're 40 years in of a carnivore diet. So now let's, before we go back to the chat, let's go back to our article. We're on point number 2, and it says your bathroom habits will change dramatically. This is from the article, What a Meat-Based Carnivore Diet Does to Your Body. It says, kiss fiber goodbye. Boy, they've 2 points. They've mentioned fiber in both of them.
Yeah.
Say hello to constipation. Without plants in your diet, many carnivore converts experience serious bathroom blues. The lack of fiber can slow your digestive system to a crawl. Some people report the opposite problem, unwelcome diarrhea. So the author here seems to put forth a contradiction in 2 sentences. Let's talk about bathroom habits. Everybody's favorite topic, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so in the beginning, yes, it's going to change things up. You know, dramatically, no, I think that's being a little melodramatic myself. But yeah, in the beginning, you're going to change up your gut biome. When that happens, you're going to experience something. In my case, yeah, I had diarrhea for 30 days. After that, I developed constipation. Now, the caveat to that is most people don't get constipation. I did because I have special circumstances, and I had to treat that with supplements. And then after about a year, it went away, and I became fairly normal. But the thing was, I don't have a gallbladder. I haven't had a gallbladder since 1997, and I suffered with IBS for over 30 years. That combination, when I went to carnivore, that combination was tough on me. And so I didn't experience the same BMs that most everybody else has. But the majority of people that that go on carnivore, especially those that jump right in with both feet, like several of us have, yeah, they're going to experience some upset bowel, some loose stools in the beginning, but it generally goes away anywhere from 2 weeks to a month. For some, it may take 2 months. But then they go back to having normal bowel movements. The thing is, they just don't have 3 or 4 a day like they used to because of the fiber. Right. You know, that's the thing. Yeah. It's not unusual. Now, we see people all the time. They come and they ask us. They say, "Well, what's going on? I haven't pooped in 3 days. I must be constipated." No, you just ain't got nothing to poop because your body is absorbing all of the nutrients from the food. You're so used to eating foods that have no nutrients whatsoever, that they can't be digested, that your body is constantly trying to expel them. Well, now when you don't have that fiber and you're absorbing everything, there's nothing left to get rid of. And so you don't go as often. Now, me, about once every 7 days for me. You know, most people go a little bit more than that, but not me. 7 days. And I've gone as long as 14.
Yeah. So I probably average 3 times a week. So when I first started, yeah, like, so I was an ulcerative colitis sufferer, you know, so I you know, there was times where I'd gone a couple dozen times a day, but when I first started carnivore, yeah, it was like nothing for 8-9 days or something at first, you know, and then it was the opposite problem. You know, I had both these issues like here it's described in this article. But then after about a month, everything returned to what I call normal. And it was, for me, it was a new normal. And right. For me, that was a very, very pleasant normal compared to the life that I had to live before. And yeah, I don't need any fiber to have normalcy in my bathroom experience. And then what I've come to learn is that what's going on is, just like you said, there's the absorption. You know, when you're eating meat, you're absorbing everything. And someone gave the example of a colostomy bag. Someone who had ulcerative colitis ended up having their colon removed. When they were eating plants, that colostomy bag would fill up with undigested plants. But when they went to a carnivore diet, there's never any meat seen in that colostomy bag.
Yeah. Carnivore talks about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because your body absorbs all of that. And then as far as the, little diarrhea, a little constipation back and forth for that first month, your microbiome's changing. You used to be, you had all this gut flora and bacteria in there that you were used to feeding and fermenting these plants. Those begin to die off, and the ones that can thrive on your new source of food that's coming down, they propagate, and so you have a little bit of a bowel change there, but it's just temporary. And that's why we always talk about a transition period. When you start a strict carnivore diet, or even a stricter keto diet, they'll call it the keto flu. Those first 2 to 4 to maybe 6 weeks. And then those symptoms go away and you return to normal. And it's just an adjustment period for your body and nothing more.
Yeah, I had a pretty big adjustment period, but mine was self-inflicted. I didn't read anything about carnivore. I didn't know anything about carnivore. My son walked up on the deck and said he'd been doing carnivore for 2 or 3 weeks and lost 10 or 15 pounds. And I said, hey, I'll go with it. And I just started eating meat. No fat ratio, no electrolytes, no nothing. And I mean, it was pretty rough starting. I was like, ooh, I don't know about this. But then as soon as I'm like, hey, ding-a-ling, you're not paying attention, you're not reading. So as I started doing the research and I made some adjustments with some electrolytes and the fat content, it's normal now. I feel like I'm just as normal as I was before, just like you guys said, less often. I'm a 2 times a week kind of guy, and everything else is normal about it. Of course, anytime you change your diet drastically, it's going to be a reaction. Or, if you were all carnivore and went all keto, or you even went like all vegan, you'd have the same thing. Anytime you switch up hard like that, you're going to have issues. But if you do it smarter than I did it, I don't think that transition period is as bad.
Yeah, no, that's true. And the keto flu doesn't have to be a thing. You can transition slowly. You can start low carb and gradually increase your meat portion, reduce your vegetable portion, and you can do that over the course of like 2 months and never experience the keto flu or any transition symptoms. So it doesn't have to be a thing. But most of us, for some reason, when we're ready to go, we jump in head first.
I went from a dumpster diet to strict carnivore day one, and it was
same.
And so but it was a month. If it was a month, and then I've had a couple different times where I did some dumb stuff and had some issues for a day or so. I posted one time that I still drink dairy. I just still drink milk every so often, and I reached in the counter and I wasn't wearing my glasses, and I reached in this thing and it had a blue cap on it. So I assumed it was the 2% milk. When I got in the truck, I opened it up. I turned it up, and it's like a Nestle Quick Yoo-hoo type vanilla. Tastes like straight ice cream.
Okay.
And I'm really cheap on top of everything else, and I'm like, well, I bought it. I'm going to drink it. So I drank it, and that one was pretty bad. I had a colonoscopy the following week, and that vanilla drink was more powerful than the colonoscopy medicine they gave me to clear me out. So I was clear for a whole week. And a lot of it can be self-inflicted. And then I would tell anybody that's thinking about it, hey, read a little bit first, and you can limit a lot of that negativity of the transition period by going in a smoother fashion than what I did.
Yeah, I remember watching a YouTube with some guy that I don't remember who he was, but he tried carnivore for 2 weeks. And he had diarrhea, and he just thought that was the most horrible experience he'd ever had in his life. And he got off of it, and said it was just trying to kill him. I said, my gosh, man, you've never gone through any hardship in your life, have you? 2 weeks, 2 weeks diarrhea. That was the hardest thing you ever went through. Okay.
Yeah, when I started, I was into it about 6 weeks. And it hit me, and it's a good thing I wasn't working then, because it was pretty bad. then afterwards, I kept wondering why because I would hear these stories of like, people getting constipated, and like steak and butter gal, she's like, now it's consistent. It's, X amount, and it's firm, and I was still getting loose stools. Come to find out, it was how much Redmond real salt I've been adding to my water. But now I cannot drink plain water without adding that Redmond real salt. It just tastes too blasé, too bleh. I got to have my Redmond real salt in my water now.
And one thing about the carnivore community is kind of comical, is this is probably the easiest and most enjoyable place to talk about loose stool. It is just so funny. It's like any other community, it's like taboo, but here it was like, oh yeah, diarrhea. And I'll tell a quick funny, don't drag things out, but during I was having that time, I pulled into you was talking about working, and I pulled into the parking lot, and I barely made it at work. I threw the door open, and I looked, and our flagpole has got a cluster of bushes around it at the job site.
Oh, no.
And I ran into the bushes, and I just dropped them, and I was like, well, I'm out. Nobody can see me. And I said, well, I guess I'm the only person in the history of this plant, 60 plus years, that took a dump on the flagpole. And then as I was cleaning up, going to come back out of the bushes, I looked down, and I was the second person. There was another pile right there. So I was like, hey, I'm going to have another carnivore buddy on site. But so yeah, it is funny that this community is just, it's like, hey, it's just a subject. It's comical. It's funny. And so, but it's kind of a funny for me.
Yeah. All right. Back to the chat for a little bit. Catherine says, maybe read Georgia Eads' book. She helps people with brain issues, and OCD is just that, a brain issue. That is correct. So, if hopefully you're still in the chat and you saw this comment, that's good advice. I haven't read that one myself, but I did listen. I do audiobooks. I did listen to Brain Energy by Chris Palmer, and that was very enjoyable too. He had a lot of use cases where he used a ketogenic diet to help people with their mental issues. So definitely check that out. All right. Sean says, I have a question. I believe that I have heart palpitations, but my cardiologist said it was nothing to be worried about, and it is not AFib, but I will see him again in July. He says it is because of my sleep apnea. So yeah,
I can answer that one.
Yeah, this is his favorite topic. I would say my first thought is, yeah, listen to a cardiologist. I'd probably believe him in this case. But go ahead.
Likely it's not palpitations that he's having. It's probably PVCs, preventricular contractions, which are very common. They're not harmful. I've had them most of my adult life. The only way to know for sure is to get on EKG, catch it during an EKG, and they can tell from that what it is. So if your doctor isn't worried about it, I'm going to say he probably knows it's PVCs. So yeah, it's probably nothing to be concerned about. But yes, sleep apnea is a factor, or is thought to be a factor in your heart, because when you don't breathe at night, and it puts a lot of strain on your heart, and that strain on your heart can create issues such as atrial fibrillation. Now, that was the beauty of, well, it was one of the things that helped me with my AFib, that helped reverse my AFib, is my sleep apnea went from a 22 down to a 4. And 4 is virtually no sleep apnea. So yeah, stick with carnivore, and it should help your sleep apnea, which should help your heart.
And we'll be interested in knowing how your next appointment in July goes. And so let us know.
Yeah.
Rodney. Hey, Rodney. You can join us here too. The link is over in the forum, carnivoretalk.com, in the private members only area. You can join us on screen. I've got room for 6 more. If you want to join us on screen, you can either get the link in the channel members section, and there is a monetary requirement to see that, but you can also go to carnivoretalk.com and register for an account for free and get the link over there too. So he says, shalom, gentlemen. what y'all think about beef bologna that has 1 carb per slice and 0 sugars as an occasional snack when desiring something?
It's great barbecue. That's what I think about it.
Yeah.
You smoke up some big old log of bologna. It's good stuff.
It is.
But Geoff, the thing about that is, snacking is not really healthy. We are not grazers. Because it causes insulin resistance.
And so, yeah, both those comments are correct. I eat beef bologna. I go down to the store. I'll get beef bologna. I like it really thick. I like to fry it. Then I'll put it on some Egg Life wraps with some mayonnaise. And I even maybe use a little mustard once in a while. And but I like fried bologna. And and I mean, I like cold bologna, you know. So, and I know it's got a gram of carb in there. And there's some trace junk, you know, obviously. Same with the hot dogs. He probably has some sort of starch or something in there, but it's not pure. But I don't really worry about that myself. The little bit of additive. It's not like bologna is. It's not like I live off of bologna. It's not my staple. You know,
Well,
I just have it once in a while. So I think it's absolutely fine. But Meathead is correct about snacking. Every time you eat something, it's going to cause an insulin response. And if you're trying to mitigate, manage weight loss, or you're trying to heal, you may want to keep those insulin spikes to a minimum and, try and just eat meals and less so much snacks, Yeah, so the more times a day you're hitting that insulin bump, you're going to stifle your goals, so.
Looking at the context which Rodney was talking about, he was talking about when he's desiring something, meaning when he's having a craving.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with you, Meathead. Yeah, snacking is not something we should be doing. And we shouldn't have a desire to snack simply because if we're eating enough at our meals, it satisfies us and it takes away any desire to snack in between meals. But if you are having a craving, bologna wouldn't be my first choice. Like Ken Berry says, if all you can afford is bologna, then that's better than eating
Wheaties,
a Pop-Tart or something.
Pop-Tart.
Yeah. But I would rather, if I'm having a craving, if I've got to have something to fill a desire, then for me it's going to be something like bacon. Or the rendered fat bites from when I make tallow. I save those and I'll snack on those if I'm having a bad craving. But often if you're having a desire, having a craving, if you'll just go off and do something for 30 minutes, it'll go away.
You can also you can when I get hunger pains, my stomach's growling. Like right now, it's past my time to eat what I typically eat. I drink more water.
Yeah.
That's all I do. Drink more water. And it'll suffice until I can get somewhere where I can have something where it's not going to be junk and I can have my dinner.
Right.
Or breakfast or whatever you want to call it.
I've heard of people taking a little bit of salt and putting it under their tongue too.
Yep.
All right. Rick says he's been carnivore 41 years.
Wow.
Yep. Started
Amazing.
Carnivore in 1983.
Why aren't you dead?
He's trying.
Went plant-based from January 93 to July 93. So he had a little mental hiccup himself, apparently. And then back to carnivore ever since. So, okay. Yeah, very good. All right. And then here's another benefit. No gas. That's right.
Yeah.
Eliminate the plants, eliminate the toots. That's true. All right. So, and yeah, Kent Carnivore, he's the one that had, he's one of those who have had the large colon removed due to ulcerative colitis. Hello, Lewis. Glad you could join us. And let's see here. I'd be interested in how often Dante Ferrigno has bowel movements. Well, ask him and report back to us. All right. What do we got here? Snacking leads to quacking. Yeah. Yes. Fried bologna with fried with a fried egg. Oh, I've never tried that. Now I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give that a try sometime. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Burn ends. That's the way to go.
And then I eat 3 times a day, never get cravings unless I'm by the canal and see a duck or iguana. You have inspired me to want to try iguana someday. And
yeah, Rick owes me an iguana.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to take my number, wait in line, right? We're all waiting in line for some iguana. All right. And we have
maybe we all need to just go down there for a week and just go hunt iguana.
Right. A pinch of salt helps me for cravings. Yes, indeed. And I also eat a chunk of butter sometimes. You know what? I'll eat butter.
That's my go-to.
I'll eat butter to, like, if I'm trying to fast till noon, but it's like, 8, 9 a.m. and my stomach's kind of bothering me, I'll have a tablespoon of butter just to help hold me over till when I actually want to have a meal. So, in fact, I've heard that a little bit of butter, I don't know the rationale behind this, will not break your fast. So that's what I've heard. Probably not a lot of butter, but a little butter.
Post that online and see if you don't get some arguments.
Yeah, I'm sure I get some arguments there, because that doesn't even sound right on the surface. I also have recently learned how to make butter bites. I am absolutely in love with them. So, all right, let's get back to our article.
Managed to get it done without burning them this time?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Yeah, the butter bites, they can burn a little bit and they don't get ruined. Not like that tallow that I've ruined. So, all right, back to our article. Kidney stress reaches new heights. Oh, now I'll know a little bit.
There's your department.
Yeah.
Yep.
So again, this is the article, What a Meat-Only Carnivore Diet Does to Your Body. Point number 3 in the article. Your kidneys become protein processing factories. All that meat forces them into overtime, potentially causing long-term damage. High protein intake increases the acid load on your kidneys must filter. For healthy people, this might be manageable, but anyone with existing kidney issues could face serious trouble. So that has always been the mainstream medical advice. I don't believe it. So
no,
some of this stuff is accurate. Okay, so your kidneys don't process protein. So that's a misstatement right there. Your body will break it down, stomach, intestines, breaks the protein down into its individual amino acids. The key word there is acid. So your acid load does go up. So, like my blood urea nitrogen, because I have chronic kidney disease, is so high that it would scare people. Okay. And yes, the kidneys have to excrete that, but the kidneys would have to excrete that anyway, regardless of the level of blood urea nitrogen, regardless of the level of creatinine. And my creatinine goes higher and my BUN goes higher because my kidneys are impaired. So they don't filter. And that's how you should really think of a kidney, as a filter. They don't filter as efficiently as they used to. And so it takes more time to eliminate blood urea nitrogen and creatinine from my body. And because it takes more time, the quantities of those increase in my bloodstream. Now, that's not a problem, because like creatinine is harmless. But this is why they come down. This is why they come to this misunderstanding that protein is bad for your kidneys, is because when you eat a high protein diet, plant or animal, and some say that they'll try and tell you that animal protein's worse. It doesn't really matter. Is your creatinine will rise. The less kidney function you have, the higher your creatinine will rise. And the more of a carnivore-based or protein-based diet, the faster it will rise. And this gives, since that's the marker they choose, since that's the marker they look at to try and determine kidney function, when they see that number rise, it gives the illusion that you're doing more kidney damage, because just if you think in basic terms, ooh, these numbers are getting worse, these numbers are going up, that must mean your kidneys are getting worse. But that doesn't necessarily translate to that. Conversely, a lot of kidney doctors will say, go on a vegan diet, go on a plant-based diet, and eliminate protein. Well, if you go on a plant-based diet and you don't eat protein, then you're not going to be breaking down proteins into its waste products, creatinine and blood urea nitrogen. And so whatever you have in your body floating around in your blood, your filter will eventually start to filter out, and you'll see those markers go down, giving the illusion that your kidneys are getting better, when it's really just a matter of how much is coming in versus how fast the kidneys can filter it out. So there are other markers you can check for kidney function, like a cystatin C, your parathyroid hormone, your hemoglobin, and your hematocrit. Those blood markers will help you also determine if your kidney function is actually declining or not when the creatinine numbers are unreliable. You can also obviously check your urine. You can do 24-hour urine creatinine, 24-hour urine protein, and you can spot check them too, but the 24-hour is going to be a good test, and that'll kind of let you know what you can calculate eGFR using those as well. So there's different ways of calculating eGFR. If you calculate my eGFR with creatinine, I was stage 4, and my eGFR was 20 when I started my carnivore diet. And over the course of the year that I lost that weight, it dropped down to 15. But my cystatin C calculates my eGFR at 23, and it's moved up to 24. And I had never done a 24-hour urine test until just recently, and that put my eGFR up at 23, 24 also. So I've got these two tests that say that my kidneys are here, still not great. Those are still lousy numbers to have, So that doesn't mean that I'm doing great. But what's interesting is those markers have improved. The creatinine has gotten worse, but that's because of the higher protein load. I've got more blood urea nitrogen, and I've got more creatinine, and my kidneys just can't keep up with what I'm putting in versus what's going to excrete. So I don't believe that I am doing any further damage to my kidneys, because I've been doing this for 2 years. And my nephrologist, by the way, I have his blessing. So when I first got diagnosed, I was spilling protein in the urine. He said, you are going to have to eat more protein now to make up for what you're losing. And that's because he's up to date on modern research when it comes to kidney disease. He's not stuck in the past with this old archaic information that this article is probably tapping into. So that's my take on the kidneys. I almost had a lot to say.
Yeah.
All right, number 4. Energy levels take a nosedive and then maybe recover. Welcome to the carnivore flu. We touched on this a little bit. Your energy crashes hard during the adaptation period as your body screams for missing carbs. Your muscles and brain prefer carbohydrates for quick energy, and suddenly they're gone. After weeks of fatigue, some people report their bodies adapt and energy returns. All right. What are your thoughts
Well,
on...
they finally said something that was right.
I have to say that this is going to be part of my interview, but because I'm in my late 50s, I was constantly lethargic, no motivation, always lack of energy. Part of it due to just the diet I was on. But when I switched to carnivore, there for probably, 2 or 3 weeks, and maybe it's because I'm eating grass-fed, grass-finished beef, but when I was eating the ground chuck and the fattier grain-fed beef, I was bouncing off the walls. I was full of energy. I was getting, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. And I'd just wake up, pop up out of bed, and I'd be ready to hit the floor running. I mean, I still do that now, but I require a little more sleep. I'm working. But again, my energy level, I'll run circles around these 25-year-old kids.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I think the first weeks, I jumped in head first. I didn't do anything really smart about it. Electrolytes were way off, fat content, everything was way off. So, yeah, I might have had some energy loss or something, but it wasn't really the carnivore diet. It was me doing the carnivore diet incorrectly. And so I think that would happen anytime. But since then, like I'm 55, I've got energy that I haven't had in 25 or 30 years now. So, I'm sure the body was screaming for the missing carbs, like it said. I mean, that would be anything. But energy level now is way more than it ever was. And I posted on there. We went to West Virginia to ride side by sides a few weeks ago, and they got a 1,000,000-gallon sludge tank, 17 flights high. So we're going to go up and take pictures from the top. And 3 or 4 of us started up, and about halfway, I look back, and these two 25-year-olds are bent over breathing, and then we're 3/4 of the way up, and then this young girl that I see her in the gym a lot. She stopped with like 2 flights to go to breathe. I go all the way to the top. I mean, zero issues. And then I'm coming back down, and they're struggling to come down the steps. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So, of course, as they each one come down, I said, are you okay? And they were like, yeah. I said, you should try the carnivore diet. You're okay? Try the carnivore diet. And so, yeah, I've got tons of energy now that I didn't have before. And then I'll go even a step further is coming off fast. The last 2 days of a 72 or 96-hour fast, last 2 to 3 days after that, and I've got energy like just can't stop. And it's not nervous, anxious. It's just like, let's go. I want to do this. I can do this. I don't need to slow down. And like Meathead spoke, I don't know if I've ever had the mental clarity that some of the focus that people talk about sometimes with carnivore, but just like you said, and sort of like here, when I wake up, I'm awake. And it's that quick. I mean, and I'm ready to go. I don't need, well, I've never was a coffee drinker anyway, but I don't need to eat or talk or brush my teeth or do anything to start my day. As soon as my eyes open, I'm ready to go. And so that's a little bit, some of it, most of it's correct. I think, and it's changing diet. You're probably going to see some energy changes once you adjust all the energy in the world, way more than I had before.
What's interesting is I actually can't really comment on this point. And because when I started my carnivore diet, I was laid up with a broken ankle. So
excuses.
Yeah. So did I lack energy, or was my body screaming for missing carbs? I mean, my body wasn't screaming for missing carbs. That's for sure. I didn't care. I was actually enjoying my eggs and my New York strip. That was my 2 meals a day. I was eating at noon and at 8, but yeah, all I could do because of my broken ankle was, maybe move around a little bit on my scooter, but I spent all day in my recliner, slept in my recliner, watched TV, played PlayStation. So I wasn't really doing anything that required energy. But I will say that I understand this, because when you're used to running on glucose and then all of a sudden it's gone, that's what you're adapted to. So your body's kind of looking for that and craving that. And it takes a while once you've depleted that to start using the fat for energy and to become fat adapted. Becoming fat adapted can take weeks, it can take months, and that's really kind of up to you as an individual. And but as far as energy goes, like, I used to have brain fog. I used to depend on caffeine. I used to, at a certain point of the day, like right after lunch, I was just kind of spent. I was ready to go home. My afternoon was not productive, but none of that's the case anymore. No more brain fog, no more midday crashes. And like I started off today talking about ripping out a shower. I was sore all over. For sure, it was hard work, but I was able to do that, all day long. And when we were done, I was glad we were done, but I had the energy to do it. So, and I can remember before I started this diet, eating a sugary meal or a plant-based meal and then hitting a point where I'm done. I'm clocking out, I'm going home, and all I want to do is take a nap or sit on my recliner, So wouldn't even want to go out and jump on the trampoline or play with the kids, because I had such a hard day. But now I can do all of that just fine. So I have more energy? Yes. Not like I'm Superman, but I have more sustained energy that I can continue doing the task at hand without wearing down, without losing my charge. That's when we say we have more energy, that's what we're referring to. We can continue doing what needs to be done and not run our batteries down and have to maybe not complete what we needed to do. We can usually get everything done we set our minds to because the energy is there to do it. So
yeah, I don't have these great bursts of energy or anything like that, but I have a sustained energy.
Right.
I keep going like the Energizer Bunny. I don't personally remember, maybe it's just too long ago and I'm too old, but I don't personally remember having a great deal of energy crashes or anything like that in the beginning. Maybe it's just because I've always been lazy. I don't know, but it just seemed normal to me. But I just have noticed, and there's times when, I'll be on the internet early in the morning. And yeah, I'll have some laziness, no energy. But if I get up and get moving, all of a sudden, boom, it's there. It's right there when I need it. It's just sitting in the background waiting on me. And then I can just go and go and go. I have no issues.
Yeah. I tell everybody I'm not lazy. I was just born tired and hadn't had a chance to rest yet.
There you go. I like that.
Rick says he has no idea about his health. He hasn't had a blood test since '96. So,
nice.
You look fine. So that's good. That's good. I'd probably do that better mentally if I didn't go get blood tests all the time. But I'm kind of, now that I know that I've got some illnesses, I'm like a numbers guy. I'm always getting tests done.
Yeah, one of the neat things my neurologist said today, one of my immunoglobulin numbers was just a little bit out, and he said that's the one they primarily look at. He said, but he looks at that number last. He said, because if you come in my office and you're healthy and you feel good and you're doing good, you hadn't had a bunch of infections, what that number normally is the trigger point for. He said, then it becomes just a number. He said the number doesn't mean anything. He says, but if you got infections and this, that, and the other, and I can look over at that number and say, hey, that number is 186. It needs to be 175 or wherever your numbers are at. And he says, so, but when you're happy and you're healthy and everything's going good, it's just a number. So again, it's just a blood test.
Yeah.
We got to remember one thing on this. I'm with these blood tests. I'm sorry, Bob. I just something I want to bring up. All these numbers that they say, okay, you're within normal range. We have to remember these are based on sick people. They've gotten these ranges from people eating the SAD diet. And that it's all based off of that. Well, I don't want to be in that normal range.
Exactly. When we get a blood test, we're being judged not against our peers, but we're being judged by a bunch of people that are eating a standard American diet. So you're absolutely right, meathead. We can't always take those numbers at heart.
Yep.
So here's a question, Geoff, for you. My wife also had her gallbladder removed, and she eats a lot of meat with me. Do you have any problem digesting fat without the organ?
No, Rod, I don't. And here's the reason why. So the gallbladder does not create bile. Your liver creates bile. Okay. The gallbladder is just a storage for that bile. Once that is removed, now there's nothing to control the dumping of the bile into the intestine. You know, that was the gallbladder's job. In the beginning, I believe in the first year, my liver had a little trouble with giving me enough bile. And sometimes it still does. And that's why I had the constipation. That's why I had to treat it with supplements. And right now, still, I'm not constipated anymore, but I still have hard stools. They come out easy enough, but they're still pretty solid. So my liver still doesn't produce the bile like it should. But most people I've talked to don't have the issue I have, those that are without a gallbladder. Theirs functions just fine. They have no issues whatsoever. So, yeah, it's not the gallbladder that creates the bile. It's the liver that creates the bile.
Yeah, the gallbladder would just store it. It's just like a satchel, you know, and release it upon demand. So, yeah, the liver definitely will ramp up production and compensate. So will the bile duct.
It should. Now, mine struggles with that, and I don't know why.
But yeah, that's a common question. A lot of people wonder, like, can you do a carnivore diet or even a keto diet? Because that's supposed to be high fat by nature, you know, without a gallbladder. And yes, a lot of people.
Some people find that taking ox bile will help them out if they're struggling, especially in the beginning. I tried a probiotic that had ox bile in it, and I believe it stopped me up worse than I was before. So I quit taking it, but I've never tried ox bile itself, just plain ox bile.
Yeah, my wife had her gallbladder out a couple years back, and I remember the doctor saying about fatty foods and how the liver wouldn't be able to, I guess, upregulate if she ate too much fat. She would have to control her fat intake until everything adjusted.
Right.
So she could slowly adapt.
And we're not, we're not seeing that on carnivore. And the big reason why is when doctors talk about stuff like they're talking about it they're talking about it from the respect of the SAD diet.
Yeah.
When you eat a bunch of these grains and fruits and vegetables and all this, and then you're eating meat, your liver is going to act totally different. And I think that's what the key is. So when you eliminate all that non-food and eat nothing but pure food, I don't think your liver has any problem with it. Mine struggles a little bit, but that's just me. I'm the only one I know of that goes through this. Everybody else I know that's missing their gallbladder functions just fine.
Yeah. Terry says his gallbladder was removed in 1983. Yeah. I had issues with fatty food for about 2 years after the surgery, but then slowly adjusted and everything was normal again.
Right. And when I had my gallbladder out, I had IBS. I eventually developed Crohn's disease. I had a lot of issues, you know, and but I can't contribute at all to the lack of the gallbladder, you know, because Crohn's and the IBS was tearing me up.
Yeah. All right. Geoff, I'm going to run to the restroom. So if you could read number 5 and go ahead and start discussing it, I'll be back.
You're just assuming I know how to read. So, your breath becomes memorably foul. Dragon breath alert. When your body enters ketosis from zero carbs, it produces ketones that exit through your lungs. These compounds create that unmistakable metallic, fruity, or downright rotten smell. No amount of brushing eliminates it completely. Your friends might start keeping their distance. Yeah, well, that's true for some people to some extent in the beginning. In the beginning, you create a lot of ketones. and your body doesn't use them yet because you aren't fully fat adapted yet. But as you become fat adapted, your level of ketones goes down because your body starts utilizing those ketones. And when that happens, you are no longer producing those, you're no longer expelling those ketones because your body is now being more efficient at using the ketones. So they're making this, once again, a blanket statement. And they're acting like it's like this all the time for the rest of your life as long as you're carnivore. And that is a totally false statement.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think I had it the second or maybe the third time I did a fast, 72 hours in, per the blood meter, I was like ketosis, I was like 3.4. And then I had that metallic like taste in my mouth. But that was my first fast. And I would say I was close to being fully fat adaptive, maybe not. But I do know I had probably a lot more ketones than my body was ready to use. And in this last couple, 3 times I fasted, no issues. I mean, it's as normal.
What about you? You got an opinion?
You back, Bob?
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. But if someone else was about to comment, you can. I was going to say, so I don't know if I had bad breath, but I definitely had that metallic taste. And it showed up about, I don't know. I was still laid up with the broken ankle, but I think I was 4 to 6 weeks in. I was laid up for 6 weeks total with the broken ankle. But yeah, there was that. I got a metallic taste, and for a while, my regular toothpaste that I had been using, which was actually a very strong fluoridated one, man, it was stinging my gums. And so then I had to switch to more of a nicer, non-fluoridated, gentler toothpaste. But then, that lasted about 2 to 3 weeks, and then it was gone too, and it's never come back. So that was probably part of my transition symptoms, was this metallic taste. And but it doesn't, and it would really, if I like rub my tongue up between my lips and my jaw, or down on the bottom, that's where I would really taste it too. And but I haven't experienced anything like that since then.
Never had it.
Yeah.
The only time I had bad breath is when I ate sad diet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was brushing with something that had stannous fluoride in it because I had these bleeding gums, and my dentist scared me with this, what happened to my teeth if I didn't do his surgery that he wanted, and I was trying to heal them, and that cleaned it up a bit. But then, since I've been carnivore, it got better. I don't have any of the bleeding gums or anything like that anymore either. So my teeth, mouth, and gums have never been better than when eating carnivore. I completely agree. So like I said, I used to have that. Was it periodontitis? Is that what they call it?
Something like that.
Yeah. It's like there's gingivitis, and then this is like to the next level where it's really bad. So I had that, and my gums would bleed over the dumbest stuff, but especially when I brushed. But now I can brush and they don't bleed anymore. Bad breath when detoxing and fasting, also until it cleaned up. Okay, yeah. So Rodney's experienced it, and says it's interesting how people's gum disease and teeth issues heal. Like Jordan Peterson, he was shocked. Yes, he's part of the reason why I kind of tried this is because I was a Jordan Peterson fan. I liked watching his videos, and I've even gone to see him live. And he started talking about this carnivore diet around the same time I discovered Dr. Berry, who was talking about this carnivore diet. And I didn't look at Jordan Peterson as being an idiot. I personally think he's a smart man. And but he would talk about, no more bleeding gums and all the weight loss that he experienced and everything. And that was one of the reasons why I was convinced to try it. So a lot of people were doing the carnivore that I respected, and I'm like, okay, these guys can't be dumb. So I never had a metallic taste until I went to a dentist in 1986. It's interesting. I do get calcium buildup on some teeth, but scrape it off with a metal pick. I clean my own teeth also. Last time I went to the dentist, they wouldn't do it. And so I got the tools and I clean them myself now. So
I don't go to a dentist unless I absolutely positively have to. It's a matter of life and death.
Yeah. I haven't been there in a while, but I'm 49.
I have a phobia about dentists.
I'm 49 and I've been to the dentist like 3 times in my adult life. I had 1 root canal, number 3 molar, because I used to have a tongue piercing and I was eating chips and I bit down on it and broke a tooth, and that ended up rotting. Ouch. And I had to get that one root canaled. So some people would say just yank that thing out of there. All right, number 6, weight drops faster than a hot potato. Rapid weight loss happens almost immediately. Eliminating carbs forces your body to burn stored fat for energy. Water weight vanishes first as your body depletes glycogen stores, then actual fat melts away as your metabolism adapts to using ketones for fuel. Many carnivore dieters report losing stubborn pounds. I actually have no problem with this point.
Yeah.
Well, I do to an extent.
Oh, yeah?
They are, I'm going to say 60 to 80% correct, but it's not the same for everybody. Like Scott was saying earlier, we're all different. It all affects us different. We all have different physiologies. We're on several talk forums and we see it all the time, especially with women. And it's a hormonal thing with them. I'm sorry, girls. That's just the way God made you. But some people really struggle, even on carnivore, with losing weight. Now, in saying that, I don't know how they eat. I don't know how strict they are. I don't know if their fat to protein ratios are correct. So there could be many factors in on that, but women generally struggle more and don't do as well as us men do on it. And I've seen where some men struggle with it. Scott, you lost a lot of weight in the beginning, but you've struggled here lately, if I'm not mistaken, because you're working out a lot. So you're building up muscle. So you're putting on weight.
Yeah. The first month, I could go back and look at my notes, but it was 30 or 31 pounds in the first 31, 32 days. And I wasn't correct. Fats were off. Electrolytes were off. There was probably a lot of water weight because, I had a lot of diarrhea. I was, expending weight that way. But then once I got everything straight, then it was still a steady decline. I had stalls and falls pretty much like everybody. I kind of nailed down. I could be in the middle of a fall and drink a glass of milk and you could hear the brakes screeching from the background and it would come to a stop. And then it, once I got that out of my system, I would fall. But then probably from month 8 to month 10 or 11, I stalled right around 85 pounds. I was still having some 85 pounds lost. I was having some body composition improvements. I'd cinch my belt up here and there. I was lifting a lot, but then I posted before I got so hooked up on hitting that protein per gram of protein per pound that I let the fat content get lost. And so I was high protein, moderate fat versus the other way. And I actually gained weight. I mean, I put on 8 pounds in 7 or 8 days. And so I think if you kind of go back to the original point, like you were saying, Geoff, everybody's different. And although I messed it up in the beginning, I still lost a lot of weight, which probably gave me the motivation to keep going. But I could truly see where it could have been the other way. I could have messed it up early, not lost any weight and said, hey, this carnivore thing is just nothing to it, and gave it up. And luckily I was one of the few, I don't know, but I did it wrong and lost weight and got rewards in the beginning. And lucky enough, I stumbled onto the metabolic and the health stuff, because in the beginning, like I posted before, I had no earthly idea it would do anything for my autoimmune stuff or, sugar or anything. No idea. It was just strictly weight loss for me. And then as I learned and moved, but then, like you said, it's totally individualistic. It's I don't think anything that we do is the same for everybody. Similar, but not the same.
Exactly. How you
Good night,
doing on
Rodney.
your weight loss, Meathead?
Well, for my start, I had one foot in the grave and the other was on a banana peel. So mine's more about a health journey than it is weight loss. I got blessed. I've had like Scott said, you got your stalls and falls. Hopefully if I wake up tomorrow, I'll hit my 70-pound weight loss
Cool.
in 11 months. I've been stalled out. I was stalled out, but I had surgery like 2 or 3 months after I started. I had surgery and I had to get the drugs out of my system they gave me and the magnesium citrate and all that stuff so I could go to the bathroom. But I stalled out. I was at the same weight for, 4 or 5 months until I did the 16 eggs a day for, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. And that's when I dropped down from 265 down to 250. I've dropped, or was it? No, I don't remember what. I know when I started my job in February, I was 265. I've dropped 30 pounds since February, put it that way.
Good deal.
Good job.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something about that statement before. They were talking like, and we all mentioned it here. They were talking about, how it vanishes and you just, drops faster than a hot potato. Statements like that hurt the community simply because everybody hits stalls. And I see it time and time again on the forums where somebody's in it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month, whatever, and they hit a stall. And what do I do? What do I do? What do I need to do to get over this stall? And because they think they're supposed to be dropping weight faster than a hot potato. They don't understand everybody's body is different. We all work different. I would go into stalls that would last upwards of 3 months and I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't do any tricks. Just let it ride. Because the way I looked at it, my body will reach its optimal weight on its own. It doesn't need my help. As it heals, it will do what it needs to do to put me at my optimal weight. When I hit 175 and I stalled out, I said, okay, well, 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by, I haven't changed anything. 175 is my optimal weight. Well, that was my weight when I went in the Army. Okay, I'm good with that. That takes me back to when I was 19. I'm good. Well, then all of a sudden after 3 months, something kicked in and I dropped another 5 pounds. I said, well, okay, 170, I'm cool with 170, and another 3 months goes by, I'm good at 170, and all of a sudden, boom, I went down to 165. Well, my gosh, now I'm down to 160. I'm wasting away to nothing practically. I'm lighter than I was when I was in high school. Now, that is due to some muscle loss, due to the winter. I'm back to hitting the weights again. I should have never quit hitting the weights, but I know I've had some muscle loss, so that's where I lost my weight. But the thing is, we all hit those stalls, so statements like that tend to skew people's ideas about carnivore and how they need to react to the weight loss.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, we know that some women will struggle in this department, and they'll lose weight slower than their husbands are. And one thing this is where maybe getting some labs does come in handy too. So it's, check your lab markers, check your thyroid, check your sex hormones. You can kind of dig into, some of those things that might be causing you to not lose weight. And then there are medications you can take for them. You can take something for your thyroid. You can take hormone replacement stuff. You can get those things in balance, and then the weight starts to come off. And then as you heal, those things should be able to, keep themselves in balance naturally. Maybe, some people might still need those things. So again, that depends on the individual. I also know that, like, if you're really, really heavy, you tend to lose a lot of weight easily. But then as you get closer and closer to your ideal weight, that weight loss slows down. And part of that is just science, so all the cells in your body, including your fat cells, they all require energy to live. And so, when you're this big, your energy requirements are much more. And so when you go on a carnivore diet, and you're usually, the reason the carnivore diet works because you're satiated and you don't snack, and you might not eat 3 meals a day, because you feel full. All the fat and the protein make you feel full, unlike your previous carb diet where your hand was always in a bag of chips. And so you lose weight because there's an energy deficit there. But then when you get down to where you're this big, now your energy needs are less, than they were when you were this big. And so that weight's going to come off slower because you're not just naturally, your basal metabolic rate has decreased, and you're just not naturally burning all that energy that you were when you had more body to fuel, if that makes sense. So
I think you can even look into some of the insulin resistance too. The bigger you are, normally the more you have. And then as you get your metabolic panel, or whatever you want to call it, down to healthier, then you're not having that insulin up and down spike every day, which helps with the weight, keeping the weight on, and you can hit the stall. But so once you get down to closer to your ideal weight, like Geoff was saying, then most of the time your insulin's pretty much in control, and you don't have those issues like that. But yeah, I agree. I think when people look at you, and the first thing we talked about earlier was, the first thing we talk about is the weight. And in the beginning, that was my only concern. But I've got to the point now that, after 95 pounds, it's kind of just a number now. And I'm like, just so into my metabolic health that, if I weigh 215 today, great. If I weigh 220 tomorrow, great. It's just a number now. And I can see where it wasn't like that in the very beginning. And I can see where that could be disheartening to somebody that steps on the scales and see a 2-pound increase after they thought they did really well that week. Yeah.
Well, we got to remember that insulin is that people think it controls sugar or whatever, but from what I understand and what I've learned, it's a fat storage hormone. It tells our body where to store fat, what to burn, how much, and when we constantly spike it. And I don't care what anybody says. Well, I'm gonna go out now. I'm gonna have a beer. It's not gonna hurt. Well, trust me, that your body is smarter than you. My body's smarter than my cardiologist. It knows what's poison, what's not, and it's gonna try to get rid of that beer, the alcohol, the sugar first, before it's going to try to heal your body, before it's going to take the nutrients from the barbecued pork or beef that you had. You're just go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I most definitely agree. I think it's when you spike your insulin, your cortisol goes up, but it's just the body's designed to survive, not necessarily thrive. So when we eat something, the first thing the body wants to do is store. We want to store. We don't know about tomorrow. Our body's smarter than we are. So if you eat junk, it's going to store. You stay on a good solid carnivore diet, you get fat adaptive, it burns up stuff. But even like I did, I got really high on the protein. I let the fat drop down and I gained weight. And that was just because it clicked into that, to get all into the science stuff, the gluconeogenesis. And then before you know it, the body's like, hey, that's sugar. Let's store that. Hey, we hadn't had any in a while. And so, like you said, the body is much smarter.
You can spike your insulin by having too much protein, not enough fat.
Me.
Terry says he goes by how his clothes fit. That's a good one
great
to
marker.
do.
Well, that's a great point right there, because I like to tell people, don't worry what the scale says, worry what the tape measure says.
Amen.
That's your indicator right there. Your tape measure. Because I've had times when, I track my weight every day, just for kicks.
Me too.
It's for my own metric. It doesn't affect me mentally. I don't care what it does. You know, it actually helps me understand my body, because I know from day to day I can fluctuate 2 to 3 pounds, you know, every day or even throughout the day. So, but the thing that I've noticed that on those plateaus, when I wasn't losing weight, I was still losing inches, because I measure myself once a month, you know, and I keep a journal on that. And so I know what my body's doing. And the inches tell the tale, not the scale.
Yeah, my big marker was my work belt. I got my own uniform, clothes at work. I have a belt there, and so every now and then, even sometimes, I could step on the scale and the number would go up a little bit, but then when I'd go to work, my belt would cinch down a number, a slot, and I'm like, okay, well, that's got to be good. So instead of the tape measure, I use the belt.
Yep.
Yeah, the belt's good. I love gaining an extra notch on my belt.
Yeah, that's
yeah. There's going to the clothes thing. That's interesting. As I went shopping yesterday at Kohl's, and because I wanted to get a new pair of jeans, and I was at this stage where I could fit into 34s if they were Lee's, but I could not fit into the 34s if they were Wrangler, Sonoma, or Levi's. And yesterday I went to Kohl's, and I was actually able to slip into the 34 in every single brand. And my numbers haven't gone down on the scale. In fact, they're actually up a little bit lately compared to where they were just a couple months ago. And
awesome.
And then I was talking to Dr. Nelson. He's with Kils's group. Yeah. I was talking to him last Monday, and I hadn't seen him in probably 6 weeks. And he made the comment that I looked a lot more slimmer than the last time that he had seen me. And maybe that's because I shaved my beard and my face looks a little longer now, but that was nice to hear too, because I've been weight stable, for over a year, and or like I just mentioned, a couple pounds higher than my average lately. But I'm still seeing body recomposition taking place.
Having some connection issues, it looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had it earlier.
Okay, well, hopefully that doesn't happen again. All right, moving on. Rick says he feels out of place in these groups because he's never been obese or had any chronic health conditions reversed. So that's good for you. That's good to hear.
He's a unicorn.
Moving on to number 7, and we're coming up on 2 hours here. We'll probably cap this at 2 hours and then continue this article next Monday. Does that sound good for everybody?
Yes, sir.
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. So number 7, inflammation levels might actually improve. This says, surprise, many autoimmune sufferers report dramatic improvement in joint pain and swelling. Eliminating plant compounds like lectins and oxalates might explain why. For people with certain inflammatory conditions, removing potential plant-based irritants can provide relief. Some rheumatoid arthritis and psoriasis patients swear by the carnivore approach. Can anybody relate?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. My cardiologist told me that the carnivore diet's inflammatory.
Wow. Your cardiologist is full of bovine excrement, to be polite about it. My cardiologist said the biggest reason why I've reversed my atrial fibrillation is because I have reduced the inflammation in my chest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's no longer any inflammation pressing in around my heart.
Right. Yeah, it definitely removes inflammation. Like I said, due to the autoimmune disease, I was on prednisone and Neurontin for 5.5, 6 years. And then really maybe 6 weeks, I'll say 8 just to be conservative, but it's more like 6 of being on the strict carnivore diet, even though, like I said, the first month I was incorrect. I haven't taken any medicine like that since June of last year. And it's definitely reduced the inflammation. And one of the things that your green leafy stuff. People talk about the oxalates a lot, but it also has, when you break it down on a molecular level, those compounds look just like protein. And so when you have your autoimmune diseases, they go in and your immune system sees those compounds and they mistake something that's plant matter for something that's protein based, and it attacks the wrong part of the cell. And that's when it eats up your myelin, which if you have low cholesterol, your myelin is weak, and it's easier for that immune system to cut a hole in it and create those lesions, which is MS type, neuromyelitis type thing. So yeah, this one is pretty correct. I'll go with it. But again, like, I think we could put the caveat, we probably should maybe put a star at the bottom. Not everybody,
I would take out individuals. That might.
Yeah.
I mean, flat does.
Yeah, I believe it flat does. I just think probably the rate at which it does is probably different for everybody. Mine was really quick in comparison. Actually, we were talking about this with a neurologist today. It took me, let's say, 6 weeks to get off of the medicine. It took them 3.5 months to diagnose it. And that's like a series of MRIs and CAT scans and spinal taps and blood work. And the Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis runs a couple AQ4 tests. You have to ship your blood to them to get it done. And so it took 3.5 months to diagnose something that the carnivore seemed to fix in 6 weeks. So as far as the medicine was concerned, still healing, but as far as the medicine's concerned.
Yeah, my inflammation has improved, and I mean, it's even improved on my blood work too. My inflammation blood markers have improved. And, I don't know if I ever had arthritis, but, I can, remember experiencing joint pain and knee pain and pain that would last for days and weeks and would reoccur. And none of that happens anymore. I said I came home sore from ripping out that shower today, but I already feel back to normal again, so it's not, any type of stress I put on my body, momentary, it's only momentary and it doesn't last long. Yeah.
If you work out, you notice your recovery is better. You don't get as sore the next day. And I notice that when I'm lifting, I'll lift to failure. And in the past, I could expect to be sore for a couple of days, and I wake up the next day and I'm not the least bit sore. And it almost makes me wonder, did I really push it hard enough? If I'm not getting sore,
That's where I'm at now.
Wrong.
Same thing. Exact same thing with me. It's like, and back to what Meathead was saying about how we wake up in the morning, even before I was lifting really heavy or getting back to lifting in the first part of it, I was waking up at 55 and, for years and years, you wake up in the morning, let me stretch out. And after 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever, I'm waking up in the morning like, bam, let's go. And I don't have any of that slow start. I don't need to stretch to get going or, slide my feet across the floor, begrudgingly to get the day going. And so all of that has been, inflammation is not there. And now in the past 2 months, the weight is really moving up in the gym, probably faster than I want to, because it's still at 55. I'm almost afraid of an injury. So I've actually tailored a lot of that back. But same thing. Did I really work hard enough yesterday if I'm not feeling it today?
Yeah.
But with the carnivore diet, I mean, it seems like, it's really helping me with the weights and feeling great the next morning. So yeah, I have to agree. It's really does a number on inflammation.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in real quick. I know a lot of people, and I was one of them, that thought, oh my gosh, I have carpal tunnel because I didn't have the dexterity in my hands. I couldn't turn a wrench. I'm a shade tree mechanic, and I couldn't turn a wrench for the life of me. To take a oil filter off or anything like that, my hands would cramp up, and it would take me 20 minutes, 30 minutes to, take the oil filter off. Since starting carnivore, I don't have that problem anymore. I don't have a problem working with my hands.
Yeah. Well, I was a mechanic for 40 years, and I say this in every interview I've done. When I retired, about the last, I don't know, 5-10 years of my career, well, not 10 years, at least the last 5 years of my career, I couldn't hardly grip a wrench anymore.
Yep.
I was dropping tools all the time because I couldn't make a fist. I couldn't close my hand all the way. But
Yep.
I can do this now. And I couldn't do that before.
Yep.
When I retired, that was about all I could get on my hand. I could not close my hand all the way. And I couldn't walk to my mailbox. My mailbox is 100 yards away from the house. I couldn't walk to the mailbox and back without taking a walking stick with me because I couldn't support myself. My back was in so much pain. I couldn't stand at the sink and wash dishes without leaning my elbows on the sink. And now, like today, I got a bunch of stuff done, decided I need to go for a walk because it's Monday. I always like to walk on a Monday, and I went and knocked out 2.5 miles real quick, briskly, without any problem. And I could have gone 5 miles without any problem. Sometimes I do. Today I just had time to do about 2.5 miles, and all because the inflammation is gone. Am I 100% perfect? No, I have joint damage, and that joint damage, Carnivore has helped with the inflammation around the joint, but it's not fixing the joint. I have one prosthetic hip already, and I'm probably not too far from having my other hip replaced. It's hurting me right now. In fact, I've been limping for 3 days now. But until it hurts more than it doesn't hurt, then I'll think about getting it replaced. But it's damaged, just like my other hip was damaged, and so some damage isn't going to be fixed, and I'm fine with that because everything else has been fixed. So I'm cool.
Yeah. So if you're watching or listening to this and you have psoriasis or arthritis or joint pain or anything like that, try giving up the plants. It might be worth it. You might see your symptoms improve.
And a form of psoriasis, dandruff, cured.
Yeah.
I have no more dandruff.
Acne. I used to have a major acne problem. Don't have much of that anymore. And there's all kinds. And is it the plants? Is it the oxalates? Is it the lectins? It might be. And the only way to test that is remove them from your diet, see how you feel. Mm-hmm. And then if you feel better and you want to try and isolate which one or both it might have been, you try adding them back for a little bit and see how you react, So, but unless you're like a lot of us who, we just enjoy carnivore so much, we don't see ourselves adding much back, if anything, much of the time. So,
but the whole gist of it is that everything has a half-life, and that's something you would have to look up. But it's basically how long it's going to take for, like, if you ate iron, and how long it's going to take to get half of that out of your system. Same thing with oxalates.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're going to have to give it a chance. Not just stop eating vegetables for 2 or 3 days and then I still got the pains, I've still got acne. No, you're going to have to do without for, try it for 30 days.
Yeah, or better yet, 90. Yeah, because you're right. You do have to give it time. I know people who have been carnivore for over a year and then proceeded to experience oxalate dumping. So you're right. It might not happen overnight. So, but most people, they as that 30, 60, and 90 day, each time they hit one of those goals, 30, 60, 90, 120, the reason they keep going is because they do notice markable improvements along that journey, and so you start with 30 days in mind, and then you're like, you know what? I feel great. let me do 60. And then after 60, you're like, I feel so good. Why do I want to stop now? Go for 90.
Yeah, that's me. To the T, because the first 30 days I lost so much weight, and that was my only goal. I was like, wow, this is the greatest thing ever. Why should I stop? And in the next 60 days, I started learning and reading and this forum and everything. And then do some blood work. And I was like, wow, I'm getting healthier. So there was really no need to stop. And I know some people have talked about going back, but me, I don't know, like you said, the half-life of it. I don't know what plant matter, or whether it was potatoes or green beans or whatever was my issue. I'm so afraid that if I go back and pick one, it's the wrong one. And then I go right back to 2018 all over again. So, yeah, I'm like you. I'm not going to rock the boat. I'm in a good spot.
Yeah. Rick says he's 55 years not old. It feels the same he did when he was 25. So awesome. That's good.
Real quick, when I see you on the 2-hour mark, at 55 the other day, I was going to start going back doing the burpees. GZ will speak to those 8-count bodybuilders from the military. So it's 3 minutes from my house to the pond where I live. I walk the dirt road, and when I get to the pond, I do 10 burpees, come back to the house, 10 burpees back and forth. In a 30-minute period, I did 110 burpees. So that's at 55. So we go to my son's reveal, about to have my first grandchild. And
Congrats.
25, 30-year-old young people out there, and they're like, we don't believe you. And I'm like, I'm telling you, it's the truth. I mean, so this coming Saturday, I've got to show them. So at 55, but I said, the only reason the way I'm going to show you is you start with me, because I want to see where you quit at. And so, yeah, it is 55 years young if you go about that way.
Show them up, man. Show them up.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to try.
Young kids today ain't near as tough as we was, just like we wasn't near as tough as our daddies was.
That's exactly right. I think we got to make them start drinking out the garden hose and put the Gatorade down.
You bet.
Yep.
Riding without a helmet.
That's right.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to stop here with that was number 7.
All right.
We'll move on to number 8 starting next Monday. And hold on, there we go. And very good. So hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. And we look forward to getting together. Yeah. I hope you all return next Monday. So thank you, Geoff. Thank you, Meathead. Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. I hope it was positive for everybody.
Yep.
Yes.
Hope it was a positive discussion. We'll continue this discussion using the same article, going through it point by point. There's 17 points total.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we only made it through 7, but the other ones are a little more, there'll be less to comment on, or maybe not, because we are a talkative bunch, and that's a good thing. So, and we've been doing this since October. So if you're just tuning in to these, we've been doing this since October privately. We've only recently started doing this publicly, where we stream our conversation and then interact with the chat. So, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. So we're going to keep doing it for now. So come back next Monday and chat it up with us again. If you'd like to be on screen, because I can fit 10 people on screen. And so we had room for 6 more. You can get the link either by being a paid channel member. It's 99 cents. Or you can get it for free by going to carnivoretalk.com and joining our online community, where you can talk with all of us Sunday through Monday, all throughout the week. And we get on every day and when we talk carnivore and we answer questions, and we have a good time doing it as well too. So we have a nice community over there. We have a lovely community right here, and we thank you all for paying attention and being part of that community with us. And that's it. I'm going to end the stream, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. And we'll have to talk about what we're going to call it. We'll have to give it a title and then talk about our thumbnail. Yeah, it'll be part 2. Yeah, that's the easy route to go, right? Part 2. Right. And actually that would make sense. This is going to be a continuation. Good night.
All right, everybody. Guys. Appreciate it.
All right. See you later.
Later.
And we're ending it in 3, 2, 1.